We're going to transition to our keynote panel, and we're super honored to have this group here to talk about how we learn from the principles of cooperatives. You know, I think for a long time, everyone has been sharing that they feel like they're working in silos, whether they're a farmer or they're working in some other part of the food system. And how do we actually work together effectively? It's really challenging. And so I'm really excited to bring up Rosemarie Rieger from the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development, who's going to moderate this. And I would invite the other panelists up. I'm going to let Rosemarie introduce them. But anyway, yeah, we'll get started.
Now it works, right? Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our panel here at the 2023 Tennessee Local Food Summit. We're really happy to be here. And today we'll be talking about the principles of cooperatives and how we can learn from them. We have here some phenomenal panelists who will draw from their personal and their professional experiences working with grassroots organizing and in the formation of cooperatives in the Southeast. And they'll integrate history and the principles and the foundational values of cooperatives and collective organizing in their stories. But first, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the conference organizers, and in particular the organizers of this panel, and sorry about my voice, Natalie Asker-Sievers and Emma Herring. Thank you for putting this panel together, and please join me in thanking them. Cooperation isn't easy, especially when the mantra of our times is, go it alone, right? Bootstrap it, just do it. But to build a more resilient community food network, we need to work together. We need to cooperate. And individualism isn't the solution, right? We're always led to believe that, but that's not the solution. Cooperation among humans is an age-old and time-tested action. In ancient Mesopotamia, about 6,000 years ago, humans formed these extensive irrigation systems that they managed and they built collectively. So cooperation goes way back. The modern day cooperative model goes back to about 1844, is what a lot of people say, when a group of weavers in England got together and pooled their resources. And they did this because the sector, the cotton production sector, was one of the first that was industrializing, and it eradicated many jobs, depressed wages, and subjected many to extreme poverty. But we know that the history of cooperation in the African American community goes back even further than 1844. And Dr. Jessica Gordon-Emhart illustrates this with great detail in her book, Collective Courage. And I brought this along just as a show and tell, but if you're interested in learning more about the history of African American cooperative economic thought and practice, check out Collective Courage. Cooperation, whether it's formal or informal, is happening all around us. It's often just not in the spotlight. And for this reason, I look forward to giving you an energizing and insightful look at some of the work that's going on with cooperatives, with communal stewardship, and collective organizing in our discussion with the panelists here. So I'm Rosemarie Rieger. I'm the co-founder and co-director of the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development. And we're a Nashville-based nonprofit with the mission of increasing economic opportunities and benefits by creating and strengthening cooperative businesses and networks that grow an equitable economy. In this work, we give priority to developing the power and capacity of low-income minority or underserved areas in the Nashville area and across the Southeast. And it's our vision of this work is really to build a new economy, one that eliminates racial and community disparities in employment, wealth, and income, and one that sustains the community and the earth as a whole. So our main goal is to support people to start worker cooperatives, and just to be clear, these are for-profit businesses that are collectively and democratically managed and collectively owned by the people who work there, and for the benefit of the employees and of the community. We offer free classes and trainings along with technical assistance and access to financing. So again, at the heart of the cooperative and especially the worker co-op movement, and this is something that's happening around the globe, is preparing for a more just and equitable economic system. And we believe that worker cooperatives are a springboard into democratizing the economy and giving those who actually create value in our economy, giving those people ownership and control in the workplace, over production, and in the distribution of profits. So that was a little bit about our work, but now let me introduce to you our panelists. We have in the middle, Olivia Cleveland. Olivia is an agrarian community organizer based on the land traditionally inhabited by the Yuchi and the Cherokee. Did I pronounce that right? While her experience has taken her to many farming communities across the Southeast, Olivia seeks to deepen with the wisdom of the Cumberlands to converge community-centered advocacy and peer-to-peer learning environments. She lives in a lovely little holler with her partner, cats, and many other critters. And then we have Vanessa Paz at the other end here. Vanessa grew up in Guadalajara, Mexico, in an urban environment. With access to a tiny garden, she was able to connect with nature, and travels to other ecosystems, such as to the beach, brought her senses alive. As a trained architect, she sought to combine this knowledge more holistically with permaculture, agroforestry, and bioarchitecture at the Center for Intuitive Technologies in Brazil. And it was there that Vanessa was able to experience life using ancient wisdom while also experiencing the challenges of living in our current economic system. She has been living in the forests surrounding Nashville for the last 5 years and feels passionate about reincorporating ceremony into the simplicity of life. Her guiding design principles at Nashville Foodscapes, where she is a founding member and worker owner, is listening to people's vision and their needs. And next to me, we have Terence Courtney. Terence began organizing with the Service Employees International Union to improve economic conditions for working people. He led union campaigns and later became the union's statewide representative in Georgia. He co-founded and led coalitions such as Atlanta Jobs with Justice and Atlanta Public Service Sector Alliance. While working with the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, Terence organized both U.S.-born and immigrants of African descent to educate and raise consciousness about immigrant rights and mass incarceration from a Black diasporic perspective. He co-developed the Organization for Human Rights and Democracy and served as the director of organizing, overseeing campaigns against school privatization, as well as its spin-off project, Cooperative Atlanta. Terence currently serves as the director of cooperative development and strategic initiatives for the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. So it's great to have you all here, and let's give our panel a round of applause. And now we'd like to know a little bit about you, the audience. I know you've been sitting a while and you had a good lunch, so I thought maybe a little movement is good. So if you're a grower, big or small, whatever scale, maybe you have a little garden, or you're a farmer, can you please clap? Wow. A lot of claps. If you think our current food system does not meet the needs of everyone, in particular low-income and minority communities, please stomp your feet. Not so good on the carpet, is it? If you have attended some of the other sessions at this conference, please snap your fingers. And lastly, if you think the folks involved in feeding and nourishing us, farmers, producers, restaurateurs, distributors, processors, grocery store workers, etc., if you think these people rock, then woot and holler. Woo! All right, great. Well, thanks for participating. You sure sound like a cool crowd. So thanks for being here and being here with the panel. So now I'd like to turn it over to the panelists, and they will each have about 10 minutes to tell their stories as they relate to our topic here. And I thought we might start off with Terence. Cultivating cooperatives, you know, what is the history and the principles, and where can co-ops take us today, Terence?
All right. Well, thank you, Rosemarie. It's good to see you again after so long. We met a few years ago doing co-op work with Seed Commons, so it's good to connect. And before I get into my comments, I also want to take some time to thank Emma, who's helped bring me to this, to Natalie and Brenda Budke, the president of the organization. So I want to give thanks for everybody involved in organizing this event and asking the Federation to contribute to the conversation. So yes, again, my name is Terence Courtney. I'm the Director of Cooperative Development and Strategic Initiatives with the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. And the way I like to describe my work, I like to use a sci-fi analogy. I'm a sci-fi fan, and in particular, I like Star Trek, the original series. And one of the scenes I think best symbolizes the way my work works is the three-dimensional chess. You know, sometimes in an episode you might see Kirk and Spock like in their break room or cafeteria playing three-dimensional chess. And I like to describe that as a way of looking at my work because I feel like it operates in three dimensions. At the grassroots level, what I do is work with emerging groups of people who are just starting to embark on their cooperative development journey. And then at the next level, at the next dimension, is the regional level, where I work with our regional leaders and our state associations to create a comprehensive and a universal approach to cooperative development. We work together to provide training and technical assistance at a regional level. And then the third dimension is international, where I lead our efforts to build partnerships with other cooperatives in other countries to hopefully facilitate cooperation among cooperatives, Principle 6, or bilateral trade between our cooperatives. So, I was just sharing with one of my new friends here that, I had opportunity to go to Cuba this past June to participate in their cooperative symposiums. So those are some of the levels that I work at. But I'm sharing that to say that those three levels give me a very unique perspective. So I'm afforded an opportunity to gauge not just our members, but our organizational allies and other individuals who are at various stages of co-op development. In addition to that, I get to learn from the elders who are still very active in the Federation. They have a saying in the Federation, the elders do. They said, you don't retire from the Federation, you just stop getting paid. So they stay active, and it's so remarkable to me that, you have 60, 70, 80-year-old founders of the organization still trying to help the organization and cooperatives and farmers advance. So I use this vantage point to help try to draw a connection between our theme today and the work the Federation does in terms of cultivating cooperation. When the Federation considers cooperative development, we always start with a key question, and that question is, what is the need? What is the need? And so with that, I'm using that as a way to look at this theme. So what is the need that we're attempting to address with this conference? What is the need that we're attempting to address with this theme? And from our perspective, the need that we're really fundamentally dealing with is twofold. One is the need for resilience in the face of structural oppression and global climate change. And the second need I will identify is the need to actively resist oppression to help create new and better ways of doing things. So in essence, I think the need that we're attempting to address here today in this conversation is the need for economic and social justice. So the idea of cultivating cooperation has a powerful resonance for the Federation because the work we do is ultimately about advancing cooperatives, not as a gimmick or not as an end unto itself, but as a way to reach economic and social justice. And many of our members are rooted in that. Rooted in that experience. We serve folks who have been faced with and continue to face historic and systematic institutional racism, patriarchy, economic exploitation, and some of the most severe impacts from global climate change. In fact, the Federation was born to be a network of resilience and resistance. During the late 1960s, the era in which the Federation was founded, racial and economic violence were used overtly to contain and control black communities. Poverty and disenfranchisement was the way that most people lived out their entire lives. So the Federation was formed to be an organization that not only helped people endure this problem, but more importantly, we came about to make changes in this broader condition. So for the Federation, when we think about resilience and resistance, that requires three things. Number one, organization. We understood that even back then and as today, in order for people who are dealing with oppression and climate change and other problems, we have to be organized. Number two, we need sustainability. Co-ops help us with that because we see cooperatives as businesses that help us generate resources for that self-sustainability. And third, we need a strategy. We need a particular way of going about the work we do to achieve our goals. So we believe cooperatives provide these three things. Moreover, cooperatives exist within an already recognized global community with internationally held principles such as, number one, being voluntary and open, right? Voluntary and open membership. Democratic member control, that's number two. Member economic participation. Autonomy and independence. Education, training, and information. Cooperation among cooperatives, and my favorite, number 7, concern for community. So using these principles and approaches has enabled the Federation to sustain itself for almost 6 decades. We started in '67 with 22 cooperatives coming from about 13 states in the South. Today, we represent more than 70 cooperatives throughout the South. During this time, we've helped members create cooperative businesses that have sheltered them from economic storms and downturns, and arguably helped maintain something some people call a middle class. In more recent years, our cooperatives have helped members ride out economic downturns caused by natural disasters, floods, hurricanes, and all of those. In fact, during COVID-19, during that shutdown, when states closed down, our cooperatives rallied together to restart our regional marketing program. And this resulted in many cases a reversal of fortunes for our cooperatives. When that COVID shutdown first started, many of our cooperatives reported about 70% losses in revenue. By the time we got that regional marketing system back going, most of our cooperatives had surpluses at the end of the year. So that was a big reversal. It was only able to be brought about because of our cooperatives cooperating with one another. Beyond this, I also want to kind of share some of our other successes, and I'll categorize those successes in 2 ways: interpersonal successes and institutional successes. The interpersonal successes include, the utilization of our legal team and advocates to help save Black lands. We've been building sustainable co-ops for 60 years that have kept Black farmers farming. We've developed local leaders through our cooperative development process that not only serve the Federation, but in political positions and other institutional roles. And we've been creating jobs, worker-owned jobs with cooperatives and producer cooperatives. So in many respects, our work has been a powerful testimony to what people can do when they come together. But I want to suggest that our more important successes are the institutional successes we've had. So for example, we were key in spearheading the creation of programs that directly benefit farmers of color and women farmers, such as USDA's 2501 program. We've become a permanent fixture in the Farm Bill development, making sure that the voices of Black farmers are at the table when the Farm Bill is put together. The winning of the Pigford Black farmer lawsuit was another institutional advance because in many respects, it forced the USDA to admit its role in historic discrimination against Black farmers. We've had success in democratizing rural electrics. So those of you who live in rural communities, you get your electricity many times from so-called cooperatives. Now these entities act more like Georgia Power, Atlanta, Alabama Power. You might not know they're cooperatives, but what we did in Alabama is we organized those members to the Black Warrior Rural Electric, and we forced that cooperative to, one, for the first time in 80 years, elect black representatives on their board of directors. And two, for the first time in 80 years, force them to provide patronage to their black members. So we believe that that's a step in the right direction because rural electrics represent many people, millions of folks, and we believe those members need to be empowered. And finally, the last institutional success I want to describe is the existence of the Federation itself. I believe that's a victory in that we were not supposed to be here. Earlier in our history, you had local white lawmakers along with federal lawmakers that used the FBI to raid the Federation, take all our stuff, and try to kill this thing before it could get started. But through a 10-year battle, we won, and we're still here. So I believe that's a victory. So what this amounts to, thank you. What this amounts to, I believe, is a region-wide adaptive capacity that can be deployed to solve any number of human-made problems. We face many challenges while attempting to advance this work, and we need this kind of resilient resistance capacity. So we still have some challenges ahead of us, though. I think despite the victories we've had, there are still some very big challenges, big barriers to the growth of cooperatives in the South. One of those barriers is structural. The South does not have, by and large, many laws and policies that support cooperative development. To the extent that Southern states do have laws and policies, they're very narrow and controlling. Also, when we talk about support for cooperatives not being there, I want to draw attention to institutions like the SBA, the Small Business Administration, which won't provide credit or resources to cooperatives because they're collectively owned entities. And another troubling example of the barriers to cooperative development is some of these new policies, not new, I would say they're a couple decades old, but fairly recent. The National Credit Union Association, some of its policies make it more difficult for local people to start financial cooperatives, credit unions. They require a large scale and holdings to be acknowledged. So that's a problem. We believe that more local credit unions or financial cooperatives are needed to help resist some of this predatory lending we see in our communities. So that's one set of barriers, but the other one is cultural or maybe social. The fact is the average black farmer today is in their 60s, and we don't have a ready-made pipeline of young black farmers coming up behind them. So in some respects, black farmers are facing an existential crisis, right? And so we have to figure out how to deal with this issue. Also, I'm seeing an interesting conundrum in that while we see fewer black farmers coming from families of landowners, we're seeing a growing interest in agriculture by black folks who lack land. They are landless. So this is an interesting cultural condition where those with land are increasingly becoming less interested in agriculture, and those without it are becoming more. So how do we kind of square this circle? How do we intersect these currents? So these are big challenges to overcome. We believe our approach will help us accomplish a way to overcome these challenges. And one of the reasons we strive for resilience and resistance is because we recognize that this is a long-term process. It's not going to be easy to overcome these barriers and challenges, and our strategy has to be appropriate to that. So we have one, it's pretty straightforward. I'll just outline it real quick. One is education. Not many people know about the co-op option, even highly educated people. There are schools throughout the United States of higher learning that don't teach about cooperatives. So we got to educate people about cooperatives, let working class, regular, everyday folks know that this is an option, and that we also need to work on creating new laws and policies to make it easier to do so. So education is one of our strategies. 2, we got to build coalitions and partnerships with other folks to aggregate our power. And 3, we got to continue to advocate and organize in order to put pressure on decision makers to give us the conditions we believe will help cooperative development. So I'm going to bring my comments to a close, but in essence, what I want to leave you with is that the cooperative model can be a powerful instrument to help communities be resilient and to resist. Cooperatives can help us advance our economic interests in any industry or sphere of society. Cooperatives have historic roots with international connections. Co-ops are built on values like fairness, sharing, and even love in the best examples. And so I believe that's a powerful, powerful instrument, and this is what we need in this moment in history. Thanks again to all the organizers, Rosemarie, my co-panelists, and thanks again to everyone here in the audience. We at the Federation are grateful to have had the time to share with you and share our ideas, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Terence. Yeah, Terence mentioned the power of organizing that cooperatives help do, and so I want to pass it on to Olivia, who's been doing some collective organizing, and yeah, how does this model fit in with cultivating cooperation?
Hey, y'all. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much to my co-panelists. I'm going to try my best to follow that up. But thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me back. Last year was my first year, and I am just so happy to have something to look forward to all year. I'm excited to see faces that I have seen last year. It's been a minute. And I guess that leads into what I have been doing for the past few years, which is organizing farmers in Tennessee and Alabama. I've been living in Alabama, but recently just moved back to Tennessee, largely in part of this summit. Y'all called me home, and I'm really thankful for that. In working so closely with farmers, I've found that when you are so embedded in relationship to the land, isolation is quite easy. And in the 4 to 5 years I've been working with farmers, there was a very special year that happened in the middle of that really kept us from each other in so many different ways. Compounding with very rapidly accruing societal collapse that we are all party to, I found that farmers especially have felt growing disempowerment. Disempowerment in not just the world around them and their impact and power to shape the world that they want to live in and the future that they want for their future generations and community members. They even have felt disempowered in connecting with their immediate community. When there are so many needs, as Terence has talked about, it's crippling to think about how you can embody meeting those needs. And as farmers, I think, and especially farmers in the South, I think there is a terrible stereotype that we are not people who should be at the table, who should not be shaping these large societal decisions that are being made. And as I found myself inching closer and closer to the world of politics and advocacy and policy, I got honestly kind of just lit up about it. And I had the opportunity to engage in an advocacy opportunity in 2020, where I went to DC and was able to talk to my state legislatures or state representatives there. And even though it was a blur, I realized how thin that veil is, how the gate, they tell us the gate is locked, but it's not. And that really set me on a journey of spending the past few years working with farmers across the Southeast, building collective power in not only how we can engage with something as lofty as federal policy, but also in how we empower each other. I believe that so much of what we take as leaders is what we learn from other people that we share so much space with. We share knowledge, we share place, and in best of cases, we share love. And I find that in order for farmers to continue being able to have voice in place and then also voice outside of place, we have to remember what our voices sound like together in physical space, sitting next to each other, looking at each other's faces, and speaking truth, speaking to each other and learning from each other. We have been so far apart, y'all. We have not been together in ways that fill our cups so that we can empower each other and learn from each other. And so I guess a lot of the things that I do as a regional organizer is talking, right? Talking with people, hearing their needs and giving them an opportunity to talk about themselves different, to abandon narratives that were put in their head that don't belong to them and never did. But those narratives were put there on purpose to keep us in a place of feeling disempowered and isolated and siloed from each other. Because when we have each other, then we are building power together. We are unstoppable in numbers. Look at this room right now. I mean, there's so much power and knowledge and wisdom in this room. There is just tacit kinetic energy. And we have to keep multiplying that. And, you know, that can look so many different ways. It can look like going to DC, walking up in those halls of power and saying, this is who I am and these are who my people are and this is what we are asking. And it can also look like just going for a visit. It can look like mending fences together, working on machinery together, harvesting together. And I find that farmers are, well, they're my people, right? Like, I come from farmers. I come from Middle Tennessee on the land in very, very small communities where you had no other option but each other for a long time. And I am so excited about what we can grow, not in the desperation of what's around us, but in the desperation of excitement that we have in sharing together. That power is so multiplicative, it spreads and flows through communities. It reaches younger generations. It reminds older generations of when we were walking hand in hand more closely because we had to. And I want to capture that spirit as a Southern organizer and honor these traditions of, you know, what it means to be organizing in power and in place together. So that's a little bit about what I do. I want to give Vanessa a little bit more time to talk too, but I'm just so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that we're going to be sharing in space together. And I look forward to talking with y'all more and answering more of your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Olivia. I needed that. Being here feels a little isolated. And to start a cooperative, you need to be able to listen to your voice. You need to be able to have courage to do something that is scary. And you need to connect and be vulnerable. So I'm going to take a leap of faith. And we have a candle. And I need to warm up my voice because I'm nervous. So I need solidarity. And here I go. This is the light of mine, and I'm gonna let it shine.
This is the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Who is with me, please? This is the light of mine, and I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine, and I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, and I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm doing all the singing here. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Who is with us? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you. This is how you start a cooperative. I am Vanessa Paz, and I am a worker member of Nashville Foodscapes Cooperative. At Nashville Foodscapes, I practice a democratic process, and I have a voice. And I'm gonna speak about the journey from my perspective. Nashville Foodscapes is an edible landscaping company. We do ecological design. We help our clients to grow food through gardens and orchards. We create habitats for pollinators, rain gardens, fungi gardens. That's a thing. What else do we do? We help our clients to create resilient gardens, harvesting water, building soil, connecting with nature. We vision, we design, we install, and we maintenance. So we are land-based workers, but we go to different places. This company started around 2010 by my partner, Jeremy, and it was like the American dream, right? Like small business, bootstrapping, grassroots, no sleep. And I joined the company helping, so that meant we became a family enterprise. Yes. Which means there's no boundaries between work and life. So that's what we tried for a couple of years or more. But one of our employees came out to us and said, have you guys thought about turning Nashville Foodscapes into a cooperative? And that sparked the process of education and more education and digging deep into what that means. And that was around 2016, 2017. Thankfully, in 2018, the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development opened their doors, And they were a huge resource for us to figure out what were the next steps. They connected us to a landscape company in the Northeast that were a cooperative, and that was very inspirational. They also connected us with the legal clinic at Vanderbilt, and they were really very helpful to do all the legal work on transitioning from a sole proprietorship into a cooperative, which in Tennessee means that you become an LLC, and there's a subcategory T taxation and all that technical wording, because in Middle Tennessee or in Tennessee, we don't have a cooperative act. So, okay, we're gonna do it that way. So the legal clinic saved us tons of money. So we're very grateful. So those resources need to be more available and well known. So we went from a sole proprietorship into a cooperative by selling the company, financing and selling the company. So the legal clinic created what is that document? A promissory note. Thank you. A promissory note. And they also were with us to create a membership agreement that will tell us how the company was going to be, the governance, how do we elect, how do we work in a democratic way. So that was very helpful. In January 2021, so we went from 2017 to January 2021, where we become a cooperative. So it took a few years. We also had a group of employees that were interested into doing the transition, and at that point, we started to restructure the company to work differently. You know, to start practicing what is to be a cooperative. So we had a leadership team that then turned into the board, and we created a employee manuals and all of those documents that needed to be able to operate. So 2021, it is our big year, and we are walking hand in hand with a global pandemic, personal challenges. So anyways, we opened our doors, and it was thankfully very successful and prolific. And we grew so quick. And can you imagine in summer when suddenly you have a good sunny rainy day, and suddenly you grow so quick, your crops grow so quick that it's like, oh, what am I gonna do now? Conflict, we had conflict. And very quickly, we understood that conflict happens. Through that conflict, it showed the vulnerability and the gaps that our cooperative had. And one of those was very evident, like we didn't have a proven process for conflict resolution. You know, like, so the cooperative was about to dissolve by the end of that year. And thankfully, a group of employees and worker members that wanted to continue the journey, pick up the pace, dust it off, and continue. I'm proud to say that today, Nashville Foodscapes have 7 worker members. Thank you. And we are back at the legal clinic with lessons learned. They're helping us to to make the process less ambiguous. They're helping us to recognize how do we elect, what are the requirements for a leadership team, what would be helpful. They're helping us to make the process more transparent. So that's what we're doing right now. In the meantime, we continue to be busy because this is a for-profit business, We all want to continue to bring abundance into our homes. So I couldn't do this by myself. Thank you for helping me with my voice. And I couldn't do this without the worker members that are part of the cooperative. So I'm gonna ask a few friends to come here, and they're gonna help me to read the statements of those worker members. They are not here, but they were very happy to participate in this way because their voices are important. And here we go, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, is that what's going?
Yeah. Oh, it's me? Okay. So I'll pass the mic in the iPad when it's your turn. Yeah. Okay. Being part of a worker-owned cooperative means that I get to co-create and collaborate in building a company that I truly want to work at for decades to come. After running the company with just myself and my spouse, it's an incredible weight lifted to have others on the team that are truly invested in the future of the company. No,
Okay. I am Amber, pretending to be Amber. Being part of a worker-owned cooperative means that I get to be both an employee and a business owner in a purely democratic workplace. I am a piece connected to a larger whole where everyone's voice and vote counts. It is empowering to know that I don't just work for Nashville Foodscapes, but that I, along with every other single worker owner, are Nashville Foodscapes. We get to collaborate in creating a company and workplace we are all proud of and are excited to work at for many years to come. And that was Amber.
And I am Will. I like working in a co-op because it gives people a chance to take pride and ownership in their work without the proceeds of only going to the top. It also keeps me accountable and responsible to an amazing group of people who I respect, and not just some boss who rules the whole operation. I will work harder knowing that it could help the whole group and not just a profiteer. National Foodscapes' lifeblood is the people who work and continue to drive the mission. I also like the challenge of going against the normal business mindset and trying to create something better than the options we've been presented with. Who's Zach?
I became a member owner because a workplace that values and advocates for its workers is important to me. Before I came to Nashville Foodscapes, I didn't realize there was even an option. Because of it, I've slowly learned that my voice is important, and am learning every day from my co-workers, co-owners, how to expand that importance to others in the company. Zach.
I am Owen. It's been my experience that the co-op structure affords its participants a measure of dignity, often denied the working class. As a member, and even previously as just an employee of the cooperative, I felt like a respected part of peers with different strengths and responsibilities, rather than an undervalued asset in a system of superiors and subordinates.
Being with this co-op since before the transition away from sole proprietorship has given massive appreciation for what it means to be worker-owned. I feel a connection with the other members I've not experienced otherwise in my job history. Seeing everyone around you collectively grab the reins and guide things forward the way we all see fit is something I wish for everyone that works. I am proud to be a part of this cooperative. Wes.
Today, this is Vanessa. Today I choose gratitude for my journey and my relationship with Nashville Foodscapes Cooperative. I'm learning to embrace how it has changed me and dissolve the illusion that I have to work hard and have true passion to change the system. It is by surrendering to my complex humanity and taking inspirations on how nature bounces back, adapts, and it is interdependent that I find strength to continue. I am Vanessa Paz. I'm first-generation Mexican-American. I'm an immigrant to the Southeast. I'm a land-based worker, and I live in my cooperative dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you all for sharing your stories, especially the struggles. We don't hear those stories often, and it takes a lot of courage, so thank you for that. I know we want to stay on time. I know we started a bit late, and we did want to maybe have 2 questions from the audience and give the panelists like a lightning round to answer them. So to close it out, 2 questions. We have time maybe for 2. All right, we have one here, yes?
I was just curious, are there employees that are not also owners at your cooperative, or what's the process to become an owner versus just an employee?
Okay, that's one. So how to become an owner, or if you actually have to be an owner. And second question here. Strategies for better laws for cooperatives. So I'll let each panelist weigh in on that and lightning round.
Yes, there is a path of ownership once you are an employee of Nashville Foodscapes. And that's what we're working with the legal clinic. What are those requirements now, and the requirements that were before? And it has to do with time, it has to do with investment, and it has to do with, what is the third? With the other worker members voting yes. And I can give more details to that. It is doable.
So to become an owner in a federation cooperative, it really depends on the type of cooperative we're talking about. So for example, for our producer cooperatives, those member owners are farmers, right? So you have to be a farmer and you have to, obligate yourself to that cooperative. Let's say that cooperative says we need 10,000 sweet potatoes every few months. So membership is obligating yourself to help that cooperative reach that goal. So it depends, but then, in Texas, our fishermen cooperatives, you have to be a boat owner with a license. For our worker cooperative, you just have to be willing to, as she mentioned, pay the dues, participate, right, and help support the co-op. So it varies on the type of co-op it is. Regarding strategies for legislative and policy change in the South, we are fighting for what we call enabling legislation, right? So we want, and there are a couple of routes that we're taking to realize that. One is a kind of state-based route where we're working with state legislatures to get bills and policies passed that help broaden and strengthen cooperative development. But we also realize most of the states in the South are conservative, run by conservative legislatures who have a deep antipathy to anything that collectivizes labor, be that a union or a cooperative. So we realize that unless these legislatures have a new wave of people coming in, that may be a long time coming. So the other alternative is to try to work at the federal level to get a federal law passed that forces southern states in particular to recognize our right to build cooperatives.
Did you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I wanted to speak a little bit to the question about strategy for policy work in the Southeast, not in the context of cooperatives, but in the context of collectively organizing together as farmers. And I want to echo a lot of the things that Terence said, because, you know, working at a state level, I feel like is a great way to have those more frequent opportunities to gather together, strategize together, and then, you know, go to a state house, right, together, the key word. And however, at the federal level, there are opportunities for expanding just the access to things like cooperatives or even land through omnibus legislation like the Farm Bill, as Terence has mentioned before. And yeah, the strategy is numbers, the strategy is resilience, and it varies state to state, it varies time to time. But I just wanted to add a little bit of that by just echoing what Terence said and other policy areas.
Great, thank you. One more question? All right, we have time for one more question.
Well, that question is a very interesting one. I say that because the approach that you're describing, I think, has a lot of merits. To the degree that, you know, we can make land more accessible to those who are willing to grow, right? I think that's going to be very helpful. I say that in as much as the Federation's model of land retention is not based on trusts. What we try to do is work with a particular family that may have heirs property issues or other problems between family members that often lead to disputes that create openings for developers and other people with money to drive wedges. And that has been the typical method by which we've lost land, is these heirs property problems. That said, the Federation has no dispute with those who are utilizing a land trust model. I think that can work as well. I think it really gets down to the relationship you can develop with the landowner. So I'll say, like, for example, for us, it may not always require a trust. It may require a relationship. So we have people with land who don't farm on it. They may just grow trees, if anything. But then we have a growing number of young people in particular who are interested in agrarian life. They're interested in agriculture, but they are landless. So one of our answers that I shared earlier is, you know, we're creating worker-owned cooperatives where the land lists are basically organizing their labor power. Because even for the farmers that still exist, if you ask them what their top 3 problems are, inevitably is labor or the lack thereof, right? So what we try to do is say, hey, you know, you got one piece, the land, here's another piece, the labor. Let's put these together, and what's grown, we share, right? So if there's a surplus of watermelons or squash or sweet potatoes or collard greens, and when I say surplus, I mean after the sales of these commodities, then those surpluses are shared between the landowner and the worker cooperative based on a relationship. So all that to say, that is a valid approach if it can be worked out, and if that the productivity of that land is organized based on a cooperative model, right? But also, there are other approaches too that could work as well. So I don't know if that's a good answer for you, but I just present the various options out there.
Thank you. Would any of the other panelists want to weigh in on that question?
I mean, there is a Tennessee Commons forming that is hopefully going to be able to do that. So that we need to organize, continue to organize, and I know there's a Tennessee Commons forming, and we want to. I'm part of the Tennessee Commons board, and we want to talk about it because sometimes there's people that want to put the land on the commons, but I don't know who's going to work the land. So, as Terence said, like we need definitely the 2 parts coming together and making a match.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all for being such an attentive audience. Thank you to our great panelists for sharing their knowledge and wisdom, and we hope you take some of this with you to the next sessions and into your everyday living in the future. So thank you again.